Welcome to our world, folks. This is Armchair Analysts, episode 29, and I am your host, Ace. With me, as always, is
Johnny.
Yanni. Yanni had to change his name, apparently. Yes, Johnny. Thanks for showing up this week. How you doing?
I am so jacked on caffeine right now. I'm not quite shaking, but we'll get there. See.
I was gonna say it doesn't quite sound like it in your voice, but maybe when you kick off the rundown what we got going on and give us shameless plugs, we'll see it, or we'll hear it, I should say.
Got it, master. All right, so same stuff, different week. Just to give you guys a rundown of what we got going on today, we're going to start with my random rant, and then we're going to go into the regional roundup. We got a few larger stories than others. Obviously, the Big Ten postponing football season until spring is going to be large and looming for most of the podcast. Got to talk about the Minnesota Twins. The Twinkies are on a roll right now, and actually they're literally playing the Brewers just before we end this recording. Packers have some news. After that, we'll follow up with the weekend recap. We got some golf and the Houston Cheaters getting into a big brawl. Ace's soundbite of the week, which is very, very good. And then the tee-off topic, obviously, is going to be the Big Ten and Pac-12 postponing football until spring. And then we wrap up with the best part of the show, per usual, Ace's Quick Six. So with that being said, if you're not already, please feel free to give us a follow. Shoot us a message, good, bad, we don't care, at AA Podcasts on Twitter. And then again, we're on literally every platform, so give us a search, also on YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off with my rant for this week, which is not topical whatsoever, but it is something that I keep hearing more and more, and it's starting to grind my gears. So I don't know what happened. I know everyone's talking about how bad millennials are and how disrespectful, and I'm going to go down that road. So what I'm noticing more and more, and I really didn't get the full effect until I actually was able to be in the workforce long enough to start hiring and firing, I just do not see any common decency among employees and employers. It goes both ways, but I see a lot more going one way than the other. I feel, as someone who has had, to fire somebody, I've also seen how they quit too. And, texting texting your boss to quit, not great. A phone call also really not that great. I don't know, maybe my parents raised me different. I even if it's just a menial job, I'm writing a letter and I'm giving it to you. I'm giving you my 2-week resignation. I'm not just going to up and leave. I'm not going to text you some BS saying, oh yeah, my kid, or oh, I got in a car accident, blah, blah. I'm not going to make up some BS. I'm going to go to your face and be like, hey, I'm out. I mean, because it's not necessarily bad. People move on. People have lifestyle changes. People move. Like, it's part of life. But is it so bad just to maybe have a conversation, maybe at absolute minimum give them 2 weeks notice? And on the other side, employers, they cut people for many reasons, whether they're financial, behavioral, what have you. But, it goes, I think that the respect can go both ways quite a bit more. And I feel like, especially now with so many people that have been furloughed and let go from their jobs, it feels like this is going to be a huge hurdle for a lot of HR departments, because it's like you're going to get a lot more applications than normal, like a lot.
Well, especially you bring up a good point. I read a stat the other day that the millennials have been hurt the hardest with getting laid off, furloughed, and I think a lot of that has to do with the type of industries. Beverage or food service, that sort of thing, catering, bars, restaurants being down for months. So I think you're 100% right in that they are going to end up looking for something a little more steady, like an office type setting job or something. But there's such I think when you said this wasn't topical, I almost disagree a little, because I think on the periphery there's such a stigma now between like big. You always hear media people and everything, big corporate, big corporations and the small little startup or something. That really is more apparent now than I think it's ever been in my lifetime, where there's so much criticism toward big business and toward some of these corporations that I don't think, I think what it's doing is telling millennials, I don't really want to do that because it takes effort, or it's not something I want to do. Like, I don't I don't know where that line is, but I definitely see it being there is a division there, and it's weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was your random rant. My bad. No, I'm just kidding.
I had to get the 2 cents in. This is. Go ahead.
I'm just messing with you. No, I think it's gonna be very challenging because, like I said, HR is gonna just get flooded with so many apps. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong. Even just a response, even if it's an automated or just a generic template email saying, "Hey, like we're moving on." But if they respond back looking for criticism, I mean, it's not horrible. It's not horrible to say, but it also opens the floodgates to some really angry people that are frustrated. But it's going to be difficult. But I just feel like there could be a lot more respect and effort going both ways, and hopefully this massive unemployment and now job creation re-employment of the general populace will kind of shift, and maybe people will just start being a little bit more fair to one another.
When did general courtesy go out the window? And maybe you're right. Maybe it's how we were raised. I think that's a large part of it.
My mother would actually, if she knew that I just text my boss and just left my job just abruptly in like when I'm supposed to be like at the office, oh man, I would be disowned. There's no way.
She'd grab you by the ear and literally walk you to the
I would get some spankings. Luckily I'm chubby enough now that it probably wouldn't hurt that bad, but anyway, so let's move on here. Regional roundup. Okay, so this is obviously the big story. No pun intended. The Big Ten postpones the football season until spring. Obviously, this affects my Badgers and I don't know what team, the Golden Gophers. Two teams that maybe not perennial studs, but they're pretty big powers. And knowing that the Big Ten is just going to be. I know they say postpone football, but let's be real here. What's going to change between now and March, now and April? I mean, it's not like all of a sudden everything's going to become much safer. I don't know. Maybe they'll make that call and then it'll just be up to the players. But that's the big story. But we'll tee off on that later. I think. And
just to comment, it is fall. It is all fall sports, or it's. In reading their statement, it's the same as what the Pac-12 is doing. Cancellation of all fall sports. But yeah, we'll get into that later.
See, Ace is smarter. See, I'm not allowed to read articles. I don't know how to read. I just see pictures and I nod my head and they go along. So, me being the sheep, he being the wolf. So, but I know that Ace just wants to talk about the current 3-game series now going up against the Brewers going up against the Twinkies. Last night was an embarrassment, and I'm sure tonight will be another embarrassment. It's hard for me to get excited because I don't know how long it's gonna last, and you know what, Wisconsin sports just ain't doing that well right now.
The Twins won the first game with Randy Dobnak, a pitcher who if you have no clue who that is, you're definitely not alone. He was supposed to be kind of like a spot starter in relief, or mainly pitching in relief, but he started the season for us just due to some injuries and won last night. Did you know that, like, speaking of God knows what's going to bring about this season, the Cardinals have played, I think, 6 games, the St. Louis Cardinals. Oddly enough. But not to segue too much. Yeah, the Twins won behind, like I said, kind of a no-name guy that's come on this year, or I guess last year really, but even more so this year to help us out at the beginning of the season. I'm excited to see them hopefully sweep the Brewers. We should have put a bet on this if they sweep them.
Well,
or whatever.
We can decide that when we go golf in a couple weeks. We'll
heck
put
yeah.
Some wagers.
Absolutely.
I've been setting aside money all year for this.
For the big match.
The match of the century. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on. I mean, the only real big story that takes precedence over everything is just the monster announcement today. But we kind of, I mean, it's been rumored and talked about for a couple of days, so it's not a huge blow. But yeah, like I said, we'll get into that. But the only other thing that I feel is super relevant is the Packers' 101st birthday today. They were founded in 1919.
Aw, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, boys. Probably won't get to see you, but man, I was just going through the photo album. I actually put it up on our Twitter. It has a team photo from every single season from 1919 up until 2019.
This is great to look at.
Yeah, I mean, you see just how little padding and how small the squads were because everyone was playing both ways, and all of a sudden you go from having like 2 rows of players to like 5, and then you get into the part where we're up to upwards of 50 players. Just like, okay, and then you have all the staff and personnel included. So sport's been growing for a hot minute, and I mean, I'm hoping that even if we don't have a season, they'll be able to keep it on.
What's fascinating to me is you're right. The amount of players. Think how many of these guys had to play on both sides of the ball, offense, defense. God, this is crazy. This is great to look at.
Honestly, that used to be one of my favorite things. I think it was like when we first got DirecTV, like before the NFL channel was like a real thing. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, it wasn't like NFL Classic, but it was like a primitive version of the NFL channel. And they had this a time span where they would just show like ESPN classic film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't. Also, the music is huge too. They always have like the trumpets, and then it's Steve Sabol. I mean, he was huge. He had all of those amazing compilation. America's Game, like all these different documentaries and TV shows and movies that he made, and I don't know, that was always really exciting to me. So going through these photos kind of, brings you down memory lane. Obviously, I wasn't alive for those. I think Asa was alive for a little bit of it, but just getting a feel of the history. I mean, because obviously going to see any of this in person is going to be difficult. So I'm taking what I can get. Okay, guys.
I love history, no matter what form.
Speaking of history, we need to get into recent history, which was your Aces Quick Six last week. Because if you're going to recap golf, we might as well go over those hot picks you gave us, right?
Oh my God! Well, if you didn't,
we're serving up a plate of crow.
Yeah, it was bad. I did make one change that was after the fact of our recording. I put in Tony Finau over this Sung Jae Im guy, who had a really good tournament, but outside of the other 5 picks, it was not pretty. One guy didn't even make the cut. The other guys did, but they were like low. Yeah, so I hope you didn't take my advice, listeners.
Never do, buddy. Never do. Never will.
But I mean, overall, to get into it, the PGA Championship played at Harding Park in San Francisco. Really beautiful course. It's kind of, I guess it's a little bit south of San Francisco, more on somewhat of like the harbor. Like the course is literally right off the harbor, so you can see the Pacific Ocean on like basically the entire back nine. Beautiful. But bearing the lead here, the winner, Colin Morikawa, if you haven't heard already, he actually grew up out there, played college golf at UC, Cal Bears, California, where your boy Rogers went. He early on saved like 2 critical par putts. One was on the first hole and the other was on the 6th hole. Made some really nice long putts to save par, and then boom, 16th hole, he drives the green on a par 4, just under 300 yards, puts it about 8 feet from the hole and knocks in the eagle putt, and that was your winning hole right there.
So funny story, that putt, we had been golfing, got super obliterated, and we were going out to dinner, and my buddy just like yells, like mid-meal, just like shouts. And I'm like, buddy, he's like, you gotta see this putt, man. It was insane.
Yeah, I think he's 20, he's like low 20s. I don't know how old he is, but young dude, just like I think I've talked about him before, was a rookie last year on the tour. And so this is an incredible rise he's had he's already won a tournament this year. And then, of course, a major, the first major of the year he wins, the PGA Championship, just phenomenal. Yeah, I'm guessing, I don't know if you were able to watch much, but that shot on 16 that he hit, and one guy got a hole in one too, but you got to watch that shot he hit on 16.
Done. All right, now the best part of the weekend recap. We got to talk about the Cheaters Brawl.
It's weird how much they come up in conversation, but yeah,
This is what we were talking about. Like when spring training first started pre-COVID. This is all that we wanted. Like, this is
Yep.
We wanted fights. We wanted them getting hit by pitches. We want people, well, hopefully in the stands, screaming at them, berating them, booing them. We can't have that, but at least we can have people beating the crap out of them, right?
Well, two guys got suspended, and honestly, it wasn't even much of a fight, which is kind of sad.
Well,
No
we don't have a
punches
lot going on, so
Yeah,
we're calling it
so
a brawl, okay?
and what's funny is the A's, the Athletics are first in that division, the West, AL West. They've got they got the most wins I think in all of baseball, 12. And the Astros have started off like crap. So I think this was one of those like, okay, we know we're better than you. We're gonna go out, and what they did was one pitcher, or maybe it was two, whatever. They beaned a guy twice, and the guy was on first, and the frickin' hitting coach of the Astros was, I mean, it's hard to tell what he was saying. Like, I don't know how you could tell because the guy had a mask on, but apparently he was saying some crap to the hitter or the guy that got hit at first. So he bum rushes over there, and yeah, melee ensues. Bench is clear, but again, I thought they punished that coach well. He got suspended for 20 games. I think the player in the brawl the one that rushed over there got suspended 6. But again, it's like MLB knew this was going to happen. You can't tell me they didn't know this was going to happen, and they're trying to instigate like not having like managers can't come out of the dugout to argue balls and strikes, no fight. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
That's a big part of the game.
Yes.
It's so huge because as a fan, if you're watching on TV, you're screaming at the TV. You need an avatar on the field doing your bidding, and most of the time those managers are going up, shouting, throwing clipboards, throwing hats, stomping their feet. If you're not seeing that, is it even baseball? It's like you take the fights out of hockey. It's like just rob it of its backbone. If you don't have a pissed off coach / manager on the sideline, then who cares?
Yep. Yeah.
I agree.
And so that was kind of the big highlights over the weekend, obviously, was that brawl.
Well, we can definitely give you some props, though, because the soundbite of the week is, I don't know why, it's just, it tickles me. It just tickles me, because this is like those little, like, tiny little conversations, and, like, I mean, because there's a lot of downtime in baseball, let's be honest, right? There's a lot of downtime, so when you have commentators that either can play off each other pretty well, or have a really good rapport, or the other side where they can just, like, be amusing, just this conversation. Let's just take a listen.
I actually do have a book that's called, I'll say it Z for Zamboni, or if I'll say it in Canadian, Z for Zamboni, but it goes through the alphabet and it's all different hockey.
Wait a minute. In the Canadian alphabet, the Z is called Z?
This is the first time you've heard this? Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Fouled away. I've never heard that before.
X, Y, Z as opposed to X, Y, Z. I'm dead serious right now.
Anybody in the truck heard this? That the last, really? Okay.
Well, anybody that's worked hockey's worked with half the league's Canadian, so.
Okay, like the fact that the guys were just so bewildered, they kept asking him, like, really, really, you didn't know that?
Seriously?
I mean, good props to Dick for just kind of take it in stride, like, oh, okay.
And the best part was it was regional, local. The Twins, Minnesota Twins. It was their TV broadcaster with Justin Morneau in the booth, who played for the Twins for a number of years. And I actually, if you listen to the first part, I didn't realize that he actually wrote a children's book or published.
Well, he's got to be famous for something. He didn't do a whole lot on the Twins, so I'm just kidding. All right, that was. All right, now we've gotten through the head and the shoulders of the podcast. Now we get into the meat, getting the organs, the big part of the podcast. So this, I mean, we've heard. Okay, first of all, let's go back like 2 months. We called, right? Can we give ourselves a pat on the back? Can we get a little pat on the back? We called this. So in order to keep the 24-hour sports news cycle, obviously they're going to have to run it along. Like, this was inevitability, but, they kept giving us glimmers of hope. What was it, a week and a half ago, they released the schedules. And then, like, no, we're only playing in conference. Okay, so here's the in-conference schedules. Like, acting as if nothing at all is going awry. And then all of a sudden, no fall season. Like, I just.
There's so many layers to this, and that's what's frustrating.
Oh, yeah. Well, and now, like, because there's still, Nebraska still wants to play. Like, they're you said Iowa too, right? Iowa and Nebraska still want, Nebraska definitely. But notice it's the chancellor, it's the coach, it's not the players saying it. It's the people in charge. So
their senator wants them to play.
Well, that's his weekend, It's no slander. But I don't know, man. It's really slippery because, like you were talking about, there's a lot going on here, and if I know the SEC, I can't see them. They're too big. I think they're too big. I think they have more pull than the NFL at some points in the year.
Well, same with the Big 12.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, Pac-12, Big 10, like, okay, like that. It shows that NCAA. It's like, okay, like this might be a thing, but I don't know if you heard Saban over the weekend, but he's like, we're playing football. We need to play football. The kids need they need to play football. They need
Bill
a season.
Belichick 2.0.
I mean, it's a pretty comparable. Between the two of them, I think it's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah.
But my hope is that if they're gonna do it, I I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, okay, now we're opening a can of, but that's what we're here for, right? So
yeah.
As far as I know, when I hear about campuses, I mean, I literally am 5 miles from Camp Randall and UW-Madison, but they have been making as many changes as possible to try to get the kids butts back in seats for as many classes as they really need, because there's plenty of classes that have already been online and can continue being online, but having butts in seats is still a priority. But you have to think, like, okay, let's call them kids, because that's what they are. They're young teenagers, or they're young adults in their late teens, maybe 20 at most. How smart, how careful, how responsible were you at that age? And I knew you at that age, so don't lie. You were... No, we won't say names, but you're making poor decisions. You're going out, you're having fun, you're hanging out with a bunch of people, you're meeting a bunch of new people, you're drinking, probably doing some other stuff. I mean, if you're playing football, you're not doing that, right?
And that's kind of what I was getting to. It's like with most of these athletics, I almost feel like a safer environment for them is to be on a routine playing sports that
arguably,
they love.
Yes. I would arguably say yes.
But then you get down to not only the safety, and the point is because the NCAA, like we've talked about before, doesn't operate as one entity. You can't tell individual schools, or they all kind of operate on their own and are having to make decisions on their own across the conferences. And it's turned out to be a mess, because now we keep coming on here week after week saying, oh, I wonder, basically speculating. Hey, could this happen? Like what happens if, you just put them in a bubble like the NCAA or like MLS and the NBA? What would happen with that? They're going to be safer then, right? If they have positive tests, are they allowed to go home?
The roster's like 9 times the size. There's no way.
Yes. No, I know, but it's just like
I know. Hypothetically, I know.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, though, it's like, from what I've read in terms of available testing and rapid testing for COVID, we seem to be on the upswing, at least in America, in terms of getting more rapid testing available, meaning that if they can supply it to the universities without hurting the general population in terms of test numbers, fine. I think let these guys play. But you're right. You're talking about football predominantly, volleyball. You're talking about soccer. You're talking all these. Think how many players are on those teams and how many tests have to be almost every other day. It's just, I don't know what you do. So they had no other choice.
And NCAA football are completely different. Like, those aren't even comparable, because the NCAA football roster is double what an NFL roster is.
Yeah, that's
so.
A good point.
I mean, even if somehow you are able to make one of them work, I mean, it's going to be NFL. More resources, daily testing. You can do same day travel for most of these, or at least the teams that are within the division for the most part. I mean, like we were talking about, yeah. I mean, you have Green Bay. Okay, I mean, you could basically walk to Chicago. You hop over a pond to get to Detroit. You go over the Mississippi River, and you're in Minnesota. I mean, and then they have a game against Indy, which is just a cartwheel away. Like it's all they're all geographically very close.
Yep.
And obviously, Big Ten's also very close too. But again, you're dealing with much more people, and with that many more people, you have that much more staff, that many more coaches.
It's too much to police. The travel,
it is,
everything,
and that's kind of what you were alluding to when you were saying like they're all their own entities, but at the same time, the same conference has to be on the same page. Because even though Alabama wants to play, well, I mean, you got to figure they have to play someone, right? They kind it's great watching Alabama, but if they're not playing, like Auburn, LSU, if they're not playing like a big time school, well, then who cares? And I don't think that the teams can really. I don't think that anyone in the SEC is really gonna. I don't think they're gonna go the way that the Big 12 or the Big 10 and Pac-12 did, because there's just too big.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement that, and even the ACC, I think the other three conferences are trying to figure out how we can play. The Big 12, SEC, and the ACC.
And I'm just torn on it, because I would love to be able to watch college football, but at the same time, would you want to watch half of, the power? Like, it's just weird. You have the Power 5. It's like, what? I don't know, especially when you have no horse in the race. It's like, yeah, technically you're watching college football, but...
Well, it doesn't make sense. Like, they're not going to... How do you have a fair playoff? How can you even have a playoffs when you're not even playing teams, like, out of your division anyways? Playoffs? It just doesn't... Do you have bowl games? I mean... Are they going to have a bowl season? Like, there's...
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like, I think you get everyone to play, or you don't play. I know that's...
Exactly.
I'm sure Harbaugh and Saban are just flipping a lid if they were to hear that, but you got to think of the overall product. Like, I get it. You have your boys. You got your great recruiting class. Harbaugh, probably, if he has another crappy season, I think they have to throw him out. Like, it's... And at some point, enough's enough. And he's not even that amusing to listen to or watch on the sidelines. At least before, when he was, like, shouting and pouting, at least gave some comic relief to his poor coaching, but... I mean, I agree. And then, honestly, I feel the same with the NFL. You have all of these players opting out, and you know what? Okay, they have a deadline, but since when do the players actually give a crap about a deadline? If they don't want to play, they're not going to play. Le'Veon Bell is the poster child for holding out. Dude literally sat out an entire season, just got baked, and sat on Twitter trolling people.
I was going to say, beyond getting baked, I think he created a rap album, where he produced his first rap album.
I mean, when you got that much time, why not? You work out a few times a week, play some Madden, and have some fun, I guess. I don't know. But...
Spit some lyrics with Dame Lillard?
Sure. You mean Dame Dollar.
Ooh, Dame Dollar. I hope they make the playoffs. NBA segue. No, I mean, you're right, though.
It's, you have so many possibilities, and I don't know. At this point, it's like, we talk about this every week, and it's getting so old. Just cancel it. Just the worst is, like, ESPN just keeps pushing shit down my throat. Like, okay, well, this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. Just like nothing has changed. They're giving me top fives, and they're giving me pictures of Tom Brady and Gronk in a jersey, and check out this guy. Like nothing's any different. It's like, come on, man. It's 2020. We've been through enough. Okay.
Well, please. And I get that they don't, like, the media conglomerates and a lot of these sports, they don't have the answers.
They need people clicking. I get it.
Yeah. Yep. It's just so weird, because at the end of the day, the universities, from like a college level, a lens, you have to, like you said, you either are all in or you're not. You can't have a handful of sports playing, and you can't have,
imagine? Can you imagine if football is canceled but every other sport plays? Oh my gosh. It's gonna be lose-lose, so at least let's have some uniform decisions here. Everyone's screwed across the board. We'll figure it out later.
Which honestly, I mean, let's be honest, all indoor sports, unless you're going to have a bubble like what the NBA did, all indoor sports are probably going to be without fans, but also probably canceled until they actually have a vaccine that works where you can readily, inject people with it to make sure they're immune.
Well, we can poke this topic one more time because I know you were talking about how, well, we were both talking about how we agree that it's probably safer. Not even collegiate or professional athletes, just athletes in general. They are going to have much better care and resources than any of us have access to.
Yep.
Like if you
definitely
were to go to try to get a test right now, just because you feel like you may have symptoms, you know what? People make it sound easy. If you actually go and try to do it, it is not that easy, and you will not get that great of results, even if they're in a timely fashion. It could take 1 to 3 days to get results, and they're not going to be great.
Well, and
if
even
they're talking
about
testing players daily,
or even every other day, whatever the case.
I know everyone's worried about safety, but I'm telling you, these people are in the prime of their lives. They are in their early 20s to possibly maybe early 40s, depending on the sport. They are tip-top shape. Like, if anyone is going to get COVID, these bros can handle it. Not only that, but again, like we said, they have all the resources available, and
yeah,
we know what young 20-year-olds with a lot of money can do. We've seen headlines. We've watched ESPN.
Yeah, but what about the 65-year-old umpire standing on the first baseline, and little does he know.
Now
but
they have officials able to opt out too. So, booyah.
Oh,
yeah, that was another thing too. Well, it's just for NFL, but dude, a contract's a contract. If you want to just straight up, just be done, you're allowed to do that. There will be repercussions, but you are allowed to. You always have a choice, Aaron. You always have a choice. It might not be a great one, but there is always a choice. If you don't want to play, I mean, you know what? That's fine. But we talked about the complications with, at least with collegiate sports, that, if you are on a sponsor or you got a scholarship to go to school to play athletics and you opt out of the season, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So if you leave it up to the players, you got a whole nother, Pandora's box to play with. So.
And a lot of them are leveraging that as a method to basically cop out for this year.
It makes sense. It's a legitimate argument.
Yeah, and cop out, that's probably a bad word to use in that reference, but for health reasons, they're making it. The colleges, they're going to honor the scholarship next year if they opt out in the season.
Yeah, I mean, if there was ever a definition of extenuating circumstances, it's COVID. Like, there is nothing normal about what's happened in the last 5 months. So,
I really think this is. Yeah, well, it'll open people's eyes, I think, to further change in that establishment moving forward, which is going to be good.
Yeah, well, we're not going anywhere, so if you don't want to pay attention to the horrible news cycle and you just want to listen to us dum-dums talk about it, we'll keep you posted, because I'm sure next week there'll be something even dumber coming out. We'll have to talk about it. But that's for then. For right now, we need to focus on one amazing thing. The thing I look forward to every single week for recording, Ace's Quick Six.
Man, thank you. You give me such love during this. So, did a little homework over the weekend, actually, and a little bit today just to finalize it, but Johnny and I have been mulling over an intro lead-in as well as an outro, and the intro is going to be, we're thinking of getting somebody to actually do like a voiceover announcement, kind of like how he's been doing and how I've been doing lately to lead into the show. But with that, obviously we need music. So I put together 6 different tracks. I didn't even think about it when I'd finished today, but it ended up being 6 tracks of intro, what could potentially be intro, outro. I kind of went more toward an intro theme because I think that's better or more important at least. But nonetheless, I have 6 clips to play for you. Wow, little context into what you guys just heard. I went with a theme that was more for an intro. You got to have something a little build into it. Ideally, and same with the outro, you kind of want something that starts off a little slow and kind of works its way in. So I hope you guys liked what you heard there. And Johnny, of course, I obviously value your feedback as well.
Why?
Uh,
My opinion doesn't matter. Nobody cares about my opinion.
I'm gonna do it anyways.
Of course you will. Of course you will. All right. Well, that is our show for this week. We appreciate you guys listening. One more time, just because I love to beat dead horses. Give us a shout out on Twitter. Follow us if not already at AA Podcast. Love to hear from everybody. Take constructive criticism. We always like to see ways we can improve. If there's something that we might be able to work on, something that we're doing really great, love to hear it either way. You can find us on every single major platform. Just give us a search and wherever you find your favorite podcast. Also, we are found on the YouTubes. And lastly, if you haven't already, please, if you pop open a web browser on your phone, computer, tablet, whatever you're listening on, if you go to ratethispodcast.com/armchairpod, it'll pull up whatever you use to listen to us and give us a chance to rate us. And that always helps us in the long run. So appreciate it a lot, guys. Don't care how you listen as long as you do. That is Ace. I'm Johnny. And we are out.